that targets and exploits children online? Yes or no? Were you aware that this happened, and did you sign off on it?
The premise is false. The 764 network in Baltimore is taken down, and FBI agents do double and triple duty all the time.
I'm reclaiming my time. You told Senator Durbin yesterday you didn't know about it, so your testimony is inconsistent today.
No,
Final question.
Today's hearing exploded into a heated exchange that placed the FBI's leadership and priorities under intense scrutiny. Congressman Garcia was direct and unflinching as he challenged Director Patel over the growing overlap between standard FBI duties and politically driven enforcement actions.
He is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan, and welcome again, Director Patel. As members of the Judiciary Committee, we have a responsibility to conduct oversight of the FBI and assess whether or not you're doing a good job in a responsible and impartial manner, or whether you're just a henchman for Donald Trump who's weaponizing the Bureau at the expense of public safety. As Congressman for tenure is the Bureau's expanded role in low-level, non-criminal immigration enforcement. I have a report here from the conservative Cato Institute. They've obtained ICE documents showing that over 2,500 FBI personnel are now working on immigration enforcement. A yes or no question. Did you sign off on this?
2,500 FBI employees are not currently working on immigration enforcement.
Did you sign off on this?
On the Cato report?
On the 2,500 personnel, FBI personnel that have been reported to now be working on immigration enforcement.
I couldn't have signed off on it because it's not happening.
You can call it whatever you want, but the reality is that over 2,000 personnel individuals are now working at ICE instead of their jobs. I want to follow up on something that Senator Durbin asked you about yesterday. This article from MSNBC reports that nearly every agent on Baltimore's domestic terrorism unit, who was, by the way, investigating the 764 network of child predators, was diverted to work on immigration enforcement full-time. That forced them to, and I quote him, walk away from investigations of a network of violent predators that targets and exploits children online. Yes or no? Were you aware that this happened, and did you sign off on it?
The premise is false. The 764 network in Baltimore is taken down, and FBI agents do double and triple duty all the time.
I'm reclaiming my time. You told Senator Durbin yesterday you didn't know about it, so your testimony is inconsistent today.
No,
Final question. Let me ask you, again, a yes or no question. Are you aware that agents have been told by supervisors not to documenting their shifting of resources toward immigration-related work?
That's a literal another falsehood. It's impossible to move a human being without documenting that work.
As FBI director, you must be transparent with Congress. You need to provide us information about how many agents have been diverted to non-criminal immigration enforcement, why the Baltimore unit was dismantled, and whether there's a cover-up of what's happening under your leadership. Because this goes to the heart of whether or not you're carrying out the stated mission of the FBI, keeping our communities safe. Diverting FBI agents from investigating violent child predators doesn't make us safer. Using FBI resources to target parents, children, and other immigrants for low-level, non-criminal enforcement doesn't make us safer. Enabling violent, lawless conduct by federal enforcement doesn't make us safer. As we saw last week when an ICE officer killed one of my constituents. And I know that the FBI has been involved in that investigation. And yesterday, ICE did a raid in the suburb of Elgin where 2 U.S. citizens were arrested, and who accompanied them on that filming of that show? Secretary Nunn. Shameful conduct. And weaponizing the FBI to serve Donald Trump's political agenda instead of the American people does not make us safer. Before I yield back, Mr. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to submit the following documents for the record. A report from the Cato Institute, which I referenced earlier, where ICE has diverted over 2,500 officers from their jobs. And 2, an article from MSNBC titled Trump's Deportations Divert FBI Agents Off Child Predator Cases, and an article from CNN entitled White House Pressure for Increased Immigration Arrests Strains Law Enforcement Agencies. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Without objection, the gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
At the heart of today's hearing was a question that cuts to the core of Democratic oversight. Is the FBI truly serving the American people, or has it become a tool for political power? From his opening remarks, Congressman Garcia set the tone for what would become a heated confrontation. He directly challenged Director Patel's leadership, asking whether the Bureau was operating with independence and integrity, or simply carrying out the political will of Donald Trump. That kind of blunt challenge is rare in congressional hearings, but it reflects a growing public unease about how federal law enforcement is being used, especially when it steps beyond its core mission. Garcia pointed to an alarming report from the conservative KO Institute. More than 2,500 FBI personnel had allegedly been reassigned to support immigration enforcement. This isn't a small bureaucratic adjustment. It's a massive reallocation of highly trained agents, potentially pulled away from crucial investigations. When Garcia asked Director Patel whether he had approved this redeployment, Patel flatly denied it, insisting that no such reassignment had taken place. But Garcia didn't stop there. He cited multiple reports, including MSNBC coverage, showing that domestic terrorism investigators in Baltimore, agents who were working to dismantle the 764 network of child predators, had been reassigned full-time to immigration cases. The implication was clear. FBI resources that should be protecting communities and children were being diverted into politically sensitive immigration operations. Patel responded with firm denials and technical explanations, claiming that agents routinely balance multiple assignments and that the premise of diverted duties was inaccurate. But Garcia pressed harder, pointing out contradictions in Patel's earlier testimony. He reminded the hearing that transparency and accountability are not optional. They are fundamental obligations of any public institution. When Garcia asked whether supervisors had instructed agents not to document their changed priorities, it raised an even darker question. Was there an attempt to cover it up? Such an allegation strikes directly at the public's trust in one of the nation's most powerful law enforcement bodies. The broader picture painted by this exchange is deeply troubling. The FBI's core mission is to protect Americans from violent crime, terrorism, and threats to national security. Shifting thousands of agents away from those duties, particularly from cases involving child exploitation, doesn't just weaken that mission, it puts lives at risk. Garcia connected these staffing changes to real-world consequences. ICE operations gone wrong, the death of one of his constituents, and raids that mistakenly targeted U.S. citizens, all incidents closely tied to politically high-profile moments. These examples point to a worrying trend: federal enforcement being used for political messaging rather than public safety. To ground the discussion in facts, Garcia entered documents from the KO Institute, MSNBC, and CNN into the record. His message was clear. This isn't about partisan theater. It's about democratic accountability. Congress, he said, must ensure that federal agencies act transparently and free from political manipulation. Because ultimately, this debate isn't about statistics or personnel charts. It's about integrity, public trust, and the safety of American communities. What makes this hearing so significant is the tension it revealed between institutional authority and public oversight. Patel's denials, contrasted with Garcia's documented evidence, expose a fundamental question: who controls the priorities of federal law enforcement, and on what basis? When political agendas override the Bureau's core mission, the fallout is more than administrative. It's moral. It erodes faith in the rule of law, weakens accountability, and endangers the very people the FBI is meant to protect. Garcia's questions point to a deeper problem: the creeping influence of politics in law enforcement decisions. Diverting resources from violent crime and child exploitation to focus on non-criminal immigration cases sends a chilling message about misplaced priorities. Oversight, Garcia argued, isn't just paperwork. It's the last line of defense for democracy and civil liberty. In the end, today's hearing exposed a central struggle in American governance: the balance between agency independence and congressional oversight. Garcia's persistent questioning made one thing painfully clear: when federal power is used for political gain, ordinary people pay the price. And so the question remains: can the public still trust institutions meant to protect them when political influence threatens to reshape their mission? The answer will define not just the FBI's credibility, but the integrity of America's entire system of justice. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe to American Debate Files for more in-depth analysis of hearings, investigations, and political accountability. We unpack the complex, hold power to account, and bring you the story behind the headlines. Today's congressional hearing turned tense as Congressman Garcia directly confronted FBI Director Patel, accusing the Bureau of being politically weaponized under Donald Trump's influence. Garcia questioned whether the FBI is truly serving the American people or being used for political ends. He cited a report from the conservative Cato Institute claiming that over 20,500 FBI personnel have been reassigned to assist with immigration enforcement, diverting them from their primary duties, including investigations into violent crimes and child exploitation networks. He specifically pointed to reports that agents from Baltimore's domestic terrorism unit, who were investigating the 764 network of child predators, had been pulled off those cases to focus on immigration work. Director Patel flatly denied the allegations, insisting that no such reassignments had occurred and that agents routinely handle multiple responsibilities. Garcia, however, challenged Patel's credibility, highlighting inconsistencies between his testimony and statements made the previous day. The exchange raised serious concerns about transparency, accountability, and the politicization of law enforcement. Garcia argued that diverting agents from critical investigations to politically charged immigration operations endangers public safety and undermines the FBI's core mission. He linked these staffing shifts to real-world consequences, including the death of one of his constituents during an ICE operation and raids that mistakenly targeted U.S. citizens. By submitting reports from the Cato Institute, MSNBC, and CNN into the record, Garcia emphasized that the issue wasn't just about numbers. It was about the integrity of U.S. law enforcement and democratic oversight. The hearing ultimately exposed a deeper question: who decides how federal agents are deployed? And what happens when political interests take priority over public safety? Garcia's relentless questioning underscored the danger of allowing politics to influence justice. The tension between agency independence and congressional oversight remains unresolved, but one thing is clear: when law enforcement becomes politicized, public trust and democracy itself are at risk.